So what is the science of yoga? What is the science of yoga? Is yoga even a science? Yes it is. Yoga, by its purpose, is the union of the consciousness with the primordial sound, the Shabda, the Anahata Shabda, the Ruah, the Holy Ghost. That's what the science is, right? That's what it is. And how does it actually work? How does this union actually work, right? Now, the primordial sound is a sound that is not struck by anything, right? See, for me to even make sound from my throat, the vocal cords are vibrating and striking the back of my throat. That vibration is what you're really hearing. So sound is a vibration when two objects collide. Now, there is a resonance, right, that was there at the beginning of time and will all be there at the end of the time. That's what primordial means, right? Now, this resonance, right, the Anahata Shabda, right, the Om has a way to actually listen to that, right? It comes from the Lord's home, and you can connect to it and you can listen to it. And how that is done is where my job comes in to teach you. Now, that's just one part of it. The science is Surat Shabda Yoga. That is what Raj Yoga is. See, yoga has two parts to it. There's yoga, and then there is Supreme Yoga, Raj Yoga, the king of all yoga. And that is Surat Shabda Yoga, where the consciousness actually connects to the primordial sound so it can go back home, right? The yoga part is how do you connect to the consciousness, right? The Surat part. So once you figure out that part and you figure out the primordial part, then you put the two together and you go home. Now, the thing is, they both happen at the same time. A lot of people just fall trapped to the first part, which is the prep work, the consciousness. The consciousness can only take you to you. You can't go back to where you came from, right? To go back to where you came from, you need to be on the train to go back to where you came from, and think of the primordial sound as being on the train, right? And you got to connect the consciousness, right? So when people say they meditate and they can't really experience anything, well, they're not really meditating. What they're doing is dharana. Meditation is when you're connected to your consciousness, right? And this next step past that is you're connected to the consciousness and there's no concept of time and space. That is samadhi. And then the next best step beyond that is that you're connected to the consciousness and you're connected to the primordial sound, and then eventually you come to a state of samadhi in this portion where you're connected to the consciousness and the primordial sound, and there's no concept of space or time, to the point that you might dissolve into the primordial sound itself and it ceases to exist and it's just plain void, right? We're back into the void of space. So that's how deep is where I'm trying to take you. And most people are just sticking with the dharana part. So what is dharana? Dharana is not meditation. Remember, meditation is a connection to the consciousness. It's a state of deep rest with the consciousness, right? And the consciousness is connected and it's concentrated over here, right? At the third eye. The third eye, think of it as a door, right? It's a door that you're trying to open, right? Dharana is the act of bringing the mind into control. And that's where most people are in or have learned meditation to be. The act of coming into a controlled state, a focused state. But dharana can be done in many ways. That's why people say there's so many ways to go back home. No. There's only literally one way to go back home, and that is with the Surat and the Shabda, which is the consciousness and the primordial sound. And that's mentioned everywhere. The process, the technique, some people focus on church sermons, some people focus on songs and hymns, right? Prayers where they're chanting, right? Some people focus on their namaz, which is basic. All of these are just part of yoga, right? There's no difference. Yoga literally encompasses all of that. If you just look at the pillars of yoga, you will realize that every single religion in the entire universe is coming from these pillars, right? The rules and regulations, right? Then the activities that you do to concentrate your mind, right? The activities that you do to concentrate your mind are summarized up as pratyahar, which is sensory withdrawal, right? And then dharana encompasses all of that, every single activity that you do. And meditation is the next step. But you can't really connect to the consciousness if you don't have a guide who's mastered connecting to the consciousness. Does that make sense? Like, I studied medicine. If I wanted to go and do a surgery, the best way to to do surgery would be to have a mentor who's done that particular surgery, and I've observed him at least once, or I've done it with him at least once, right? There's a saying that you can have the appendix in front of you, but if you've never seen it in real life, it doesn't matter if you've seen it in the textbook. The chances are you might not be able to identify it in real life from a book. So just because you can read the stuff doesn't mean you might be able to experience what you're reading. And to experience what you're reading is my job. My job is to help you experience what you're reading.